In the words of Jonathan Davis, go! Go! Now's the time right now when 0 people are watching. Right now, 0. Nobody.
Hey, remember there's a replay too. We don't have to remind them.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Thank you.
I love those people that rewatch.
Gives them time. Give them time.
Look, man, it takes more.
Oh my goff.
Oh my goff. Goff, damn it.
There you go. Next week. Da, 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 da.
Say hello to my little friend.
We're gonna buy the kneecap off. We're gonna buy the kneecap off. We're gonna buy the kneecap off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. What's up? Welcome to the program. It is the Main Event Football Show. I'm your host, Main Event Mike, and it is 55 days until the kickoff of the Detroit Lions 2024 season. And on today's program, we are continuing our position ranking countdown, our top 11 in the NFC. This week, it's defensive tackle or interior defensive lineman, or what we like to call the big boy rooms. The big boy rooms being counted down at top 11, not top 10. Why? Because it takes more. That's what Coach Campbell said. It takes more. So
we're going to buy the kneecap off.
That's right. And now ours go to 11. So here it is. Defensive tackle rooms in the NFC top 11. Today's the day. It's Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. We are here all the time broadcasting live into Facebook on the Villain Squad Network. That is Lions Villain Squad on Facebook. Follow the page, please. You can also head over to our YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is simply at Villain Squad. It is I, Main Event Mike, with you for the next hour. Put your comments in, please. We want to hear from you, especially on these topics, especially on these defensive tackle rankings that we're given in the NFC. But before we do that, we're going to take care of some latest Lions news and things that we do. And let's face it, folks, it's mid-July. Slim pickings on NFL news. We've covered everything that there is pretty much going on at this lull time of the season. But one thing that I wanted to talk about today to kick us off is the Receiver series on Netflix. Everybody, there's a lot of content out on the groups and in the page about this documentary series. And I don't like reality TV, folks. I am a non-reality TV. I like sports because that's real reality TV. But I am so sucked into this show. I loved the quarterback series that Netflix put together. It was so well done. You got to look inside these guys' lives, and you get to realize, wow, Kirk Cousins is a mediocre quarterback, but he's an incredible human being. And I really think that that's interesting and fascinating. But this year it is receivers, and our very own Amon-Ra St. Brown, the sun god himself, all pro wide receiver for the Detroit Lions, is one of the featured people on the receiver series. And I am only through episode 4. And I know some of you out there have already binged the whole season, and you're out there on the internet spoiling it for everyone. And that's your prerogative. I hear that the final episode where we have to relive the championship game is gut-wrenching, not only for the players, but for the fans as well, just to have to relive that heartbreak of blowing a 17-point lead at halftime to go to the Super Bowl. And a lot of people tell me that that's coming. So I know that's coming. But I've just finished the 4th episode. I am not going to go beyond the first episode here that we're going to talk about. So I hope you've already seen at least the first episode and we can talk about it. I'm joined, as always, today, of course, by my compadre and our producer, Mr. Russell Wayne. Russ, I know you haven't seen the receiver documentary, but have you seen a lot of stuff on the internet about it?
I've seen a ton on the internet. Everybody's talking about that almost as much as all the political BS out there.
Not even close, but yeah. After the first episode, I had a couple of major takeaways. First, Elise Memes needs to learn how to speak German. 2, the Gritty is by far the dumbest dance I've ever seen since the Macarena. Justin Jefferson is an incredible athlete, though. I don't think I really appreciated him as much until after I watched the first episode. Just watching him on those isolated cameras in practice, watching him work on his release and his moves. This guy is elite. Devontae Adams also featured. I can say the exact same thing about Devontae Adams when it comes to being a technician and getting off on the line, off on releases as a wide receiver, because it's so important. It's what separates the men from the boys as a receiver, is getting off the line in today's bump and run man coverage world that we live in. It's so important. And these two guys are the tops, the best. But with all that said, I still wouldn't trade either one of them for Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I might not have said that before I watched this documentary. It's not so much that there's anything wrong with them other two guys. It's just you get a look inside of the character of the guy of Amon-Ra St. Brown. And it makes you love him even more, makes you what we already knew. We already knew he embodied this team, his grit, his spirit. We already knew that. But it really gives you an in-depth look. You're watching him speak fluent German to his mother. Everyone knows about his dad being Mr. Olympia or Mr. Universe or two times, John St. Brown. But really interesting stuff. If you haven't watched the receiver documentary yet, I strongly recommend it. Russ, I know it's on your radar to get it in, right?
Oh, for sure. I've been trying to put all the graphics in and do everything that either the nuts and bolts behind what we're doing out here. But something you said about Amon-Ra St. Brown, it kind of hit me. Like, some receivers like Justin Jefferson are like, they're elite route runners and elite ball catchers and elite at getting the ball open. Amon-Ra St. Brown is an elite preparation receiver. Like, he knows how to prepare, how to do next week's, and how to get a little bit better at such an elite level that he will incrementally get better through the rest of his career. And I'm not saying that Justin Jefferson won't, but Amon-Ra's preparation level is at such an elite, like, best in the league. I don't know anybody that prepares like Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I haven't even seen the documentary, but I have seen videos of him and what he does in preparation for a game.
Right. And we got a glimpse of that during the Hard Knocks special, right?
Yes.
We got the whole world got to kind of see that about him. But after you watch this, Russ, it's going to drive your point home even harder, because he tells stories about when he's a child and the disciplinarian things that his mom and his dad, not just his dad, but his mom would send him to school with vocabulary words every day, and he had to learn them every single day. And, and the disciplinarian and the rigid schedules that they were on, even as kids. And that's just ingrained in him, the 202 times on the jug machines and all the receivers that were drafted ahead of him in the draft and reciting them. I mean, they hit the whole bingo card in the first 10 minutes for Amon-Ra St. Brown. But I think that's about all we'll talk about that, man. Put it in the comments. Let me know what you think. If you saw it, have you watched the documentary? How many episodes through it are you? Try not to give it a spoiler for anybody like Russ here that wants to watch it yet. So Let us know what you think about it, though, in
You
the
can
chat.
spoil it. I'm not. I mean, you're not. Yeah, you're not going to tell me anything on that documentary. I'm going to have to watch it, irregardless. I can tell you that The Matrix was awesome. You should have seen the scene where he went, "Ah," and it's like until you see the scene, you're still not gonna. I mean, is there a big ending in it? Like
I don't know. I'm
Thanos-
only four
okay.
episodes in.
Like Thanos is gonna like appear and give us the Super Bowl championship, and like we actually won or something. I mean, outside
Snap of the fingers, snap of the fingers, buddy.
Yeah, different
Lombardi.
reality.
Trophy right there. Yeah. All right. We definitely want to hear from you about it, though. We can go ahead and move into our next.
You forgot talk about our sponsor, or brought to you by
You are watching the Main Event Football Show, and it's brought to you this week by Tuscola Palooza, which is a music festival for charity in the thumb of Michigan. It's in Caro, Michigan, Caro, Caro at 2425 Rossman Road. And it is this Saturday, July 20th. It starts at noon and ends at midnight. You can bring your own coolers, bring your own lawn chair. It's an outdoor, beautiful venue. It is supposed to be not a cloud in the sky and 81 degrees. There are 9 bands. Music starts at 2:00 in the afternoon and goes all the way to midnight. It's music continuously. The Four Horsemen is the headline, which is the nation's premier Metallica tribute, the Four Horsemen. And then the 99 Direct Time and the First Cousins of Funk on the bill. A great band from Flint called Perfect Stranger. Another band from Flint called Big Medicine. These guys are legends around here. We also got Fabala from Bay City and the Whiskey Bottle Blues Band from the Thumb, and Infamous Quick, the best band in the Thumb, also on the bill. So 9 incredible bands, all day music. Bring your own coolers. We do have food trucks. We don't sell alcohol, but you can bring your own cooler. And no glass bottles, please. And that's Tuscola Palooza, July 20th. You can go to TuscolaPalooza.com. It's in Tuscola County, Michigan, TuscolaPalooza.com. All right, enough of that paying the bills. Let's talk about our list of 11 defensive tackle rooms in the NFC.
Big boy room.
The big boy room. So a few parameters. If you're just joining us for the first time, you've been under a rock, you're not one of the people that watch us every week, then you should be, doggone it. But we're doing the whole room, and we use a combination of PFF grades, our own gut instinct, and projections to come up with our villain squad list of 11. Well, there are 16 teams in the NFC, and that means 5 teams have to get whacked off the list. So 5 teams have to be taken out. So we hired a professional. He's called Pete the Killer, Pete the Unaliver.
There you go.
Sorry, I don't want Facebook to ding us again if I say the K word. Pete the Unaliver. We called him in to whack 5 of these teams for us. And who's the first team, Russ, that's going to get whacked off this list today?
Absolutely, yeah. And I didn't want to show the first graphic until we completely understand right here the things that we took into consideration. I know in the past we've just had one player, right? One player but now we're doing the entire room. We took PFF into consideration, but we also took into consideration their situation that they were in, the situation that they are going into, and the depth of that room. What happens if they have injuries? And the first one is one of the usual suspects that we see almost every single week. How about them Carolina Panthers?
Took care of that thing for you.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Pete, for taking out the 5-foot-tall quarterback. Appreciate that.
So, Derek Brown is on this team. Now, this is one of those things right off the bat where we're the strength of the room. It can't be Derek Brown and 0 other people. Okay. So I understand that he's a good player, but they don't got anybody else. If he goes down, there is no defensive tackle on that team right there. So go ahead, Mike. Get some thoughts on these Panthers.
Right. You're right. Derek Brown is only in his second year, though. And he did have some struggles last year, but you're right. He's a great foundational piece for a defensive line, but they don't have anything. But they really were on the fringe though of making it onto the list, right? I mean, our list
for
goes
sure.
to
Yeah,
11, but they probably came in 12th, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I didn't do these guys in any particular order. If you're whacked, you're whacked. But yeah, they would have probably been up a couple spots. But they're such a usual suspect. I figured I'd just throw them on first. Maybe it was an accident. I don't know.
Right. Well, let's see what we got in the comments right now before we move on to the number 10. The next team that gets whacked. Yeah, Gun Guy is in the house. He says DJ and McNeil should be number 1, baby. And then I just love this. Elise Memes says Guten Tag. she's already learning German.
Yep. She's going through the preps. You know, she wants to have that elite type of preparation, just like Amon Ra. And by this time next week, she should know how to speak fluent German.
Right. Scott Harrison's in the house. Gun Guy says St. Brown is the best all-around wide receiver in the NFL. Hard to argue there. Hard to argue there. Davey says, let's go, Pete. Look, Pete the Unaliver has friends now. He has fans now. Wow. So Carolina Panthers are the first team to get whacked. And now there it is, the second team that gets whacked. The Arizona Cardinals. Again, Kaiser Soze. This is the usual suspect. These same teams have been getting whacked on almost every list this year. Thanks to Trey McBride, the Cardinals did make it on the tight end list, so they didn't get blanked completely, and James Conner as well. But the Cardinals get whacked also. And what do you got on them?
They might not be. They probably should have came first, because they probably have not. They don't even have a Derek Brown. They have a nobody backed up by a nobody, followed up by 2 nobodies, and there's your Arizona Cardinals. They're predicted to finish last in the league for a reason. So there they go.
Let's take a look at the next team that does not make the list. The next team on Pete's hit list.
There you go.
The Washington Commanders. Go ahead, Russ.
The Washington Commanders. Now here's a team right here that you might be able to look at and say they were in a very bad situation last year. And this is like a Groundhog Day comment, because I say it every week when they come up. But they're in a better situation now. They had a horrible ownership, and I think that they did do some drafting, and they did do some things that would be positive for them to move forward. But for right now, they don't have a solid enough room for me to consider them.
No defensive tackle or interior defensive lineman good enough to make the top 11 on the villain squad list in the NFC. The next team to get whacked. Oh, it's going to hurt some feelings.
Oh, yeah, let's hurt some.
Going to hurt some feelings, man.
You can pick either one first. Go ahead.
Well, let's pick the one, since we just did the Washington Commanders, and we know that they lost Chase Young, and we know that they lost another guy on the defensive line named Montez Sweat, who went to this team. But Montez Sweat is a defensive end. He's not an interior defensive lineman, and he plays for the Chicago Bears.
There it is.
Chicago Bears are whacked. Do not have defensive tackles that meet this top 11 in the NFC. Put it in the comments. Let us know if you agree with these or not. Do you think the Bears, where you at, Bear Down Mike? Where you at?
Yeah.
Mike, the Bear fan?
I think most Bear fans would agree with that. I talked with Mike, the Bear fan, and he was on my they were on my original list of 10, but he actually talked off of the list for me, because he's like, that isn't the strength of the defense. The defense is the defensive ends, and come back next week, Bear Down Mike. I'm not trying to insult your team. You don't have incredible defensive tackles, but you do have very good pass rusher in Montez Sweat. But Billings, that doesn't move the needle for me. If I'm not going to put Derek Brown on here, I'm not going to put Billings on here either.
That's right. Good call. And obviously, right, Montez Sweat's great end. And then they've got stellar top 3 on our list of linebackers were the Chicago Bears. And then top 5 in the secondary on our list. So they do have some pieces on defense, but defensive tackle is not one of them. And they are whacked from the list.
I was actually surprised, because I like Gervin Dexter. I liked him coming out of the draft and everything like that. And I went, and when I'm looking at his PFF and I'm looking all through, I thought that he would have been. I thought he had better stats than that. I thought that he graded out better. It doesn't really matter. I know PFF isn't the gospel, We only use it for part of our grading on this, but
Right.
we don't need the eyeball test for this other team right here. I mean, maybe they're in a complete rebuild right there. The Minnesota Vikings are the last team right here. Sorry, Minnesota Viking fans, I can't help your team's trash. There you go.
Took care of that thing.
Thank you, Pete.
They did get Andrew Van Ginkel from Miami. He's a solid player. They got Jonathan Greenard from the Houston Texans, but those are pass rushers.
Yep.
Up the middle, they're not good. Defensive tackle, interior defensive lineman. So they do have pieces on Harrison Smith back there, and the safety's getting old, but he's still an effective player. Josh Metellus, an outstanding nickel slot corner. They've got some good pieces, and they've got Brian Flores, who's an outstanding defensive coordinator. But that's not going to get you on the list of defensive tackles in the NFC for the villain squad. So you're wiggity whacked.
Took care of that thing for you.
Thank you, Pete. And that concludes Pete's work, right? That's all 5 of the teams that are whacked.
We were getting too emotional because when you and I were making separate lists, sometimes there would be like 6 teams, and Pete was like, "Look, man, that's a little bit too much work for me." So we are able to. So you and I come up with a consensus list, and that way Pete only has to do 5 jobs. Okay, all right.
So we'll start now at the bottom at the number 11 defensive tackle room in the NFC, as voted on by the villain squad. That's me and Russ.
Because we're so smart, Mike. I know.
And they have a guy there right in the middle named Dexter Lawrence, who might be as good as any. But the Giants run a 3-4 more than any other team in the league. They run 3 down linemen more than any other team in the league because they have really strong linebackers, and they have Kayvon Thibodeau on one side. And now they're going to have Brian Burns on the other side. So I think they're actually going to run more 4-man front this year. But as of using last year's stats and stuff, Dexter Lawrence is one of the best in the league. But they don't have any depth behind him, and we're grading the whole room here. If we were grading individual defensive tackles, Dexter Lawrence would be in the top 5, hands down, easily.
Well, okay. Well, I'm going to go one more on you. It's like this team has a lot in common with the Carolina Panthers, where you got one high-end guy. But here's the thing. Dexter Lawrence is so good. I would probably put him number 1 on this list in the NFC because he's the best defensive tackle in the NFC and by himself. But you're right. They have nothing after him. So based on the strength of this guy alone, I couldn't put Derek Brown on there because he's pretty good. This guy's like the best in the NFC by himself. So I had to get him on the list. That's why he made the bottom of the list, but they have no depth after that. There's nothing after that. You better hope those pass rushers get home because you did have Leonard Williams, and that would have put you more. Oh, sorry, Paul. Paul missed Pete right there. We're just talking about these New York Giants right there. But the strength alone, Dexter Lawrence is awesome. He's awesome.
We're going to bite a kneecap off.
Give Paul a little Pete.
You want a little Pete?
Get a little Pete right there.
Took care of that thing for you.
Yeah, took care of that thing for you. If you ever watch the movie Goodfellas, you'll understand that. If you're not, go watch that movie.
Yeah, let's go back and review before we even got. So that was the number 11 team right there. That was the New York Giants right there. Pete came in. He took care of the Carolina Panthers.
Took care of that thing for you.
He took care of the Arizona Cardinals.
Took care of that thing for you.
He also took care of the Washington Commanders.
Took care of that thing for you.
And thank you, Pete. And he also took and he also took care of these pesky Chicago Bears. That one didn't hurt so bad. And then finally, the other one that it didn't hurt so bad
took care of that thing for you.
Was the Minnesota Vikings. But now we just showed that number 11 on the list was the New York Giants, Mike.
And that brings us to number 10, which you would think would go a lot higher, and that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is a team that when I made my separate list of yours, I had the Buccaneers considerably higher because of this guy right here, Vita Vea. He plugs up so much space. He's so tough against the run. But then I talked to Russ, and the PFF grades just don't show it in every area. Isn't that right, Russ?
Well, I mean, when it comes with him, it's just like you got Vita Vea, and then you got Golston, who is an aging guy that's pretty good, and then there's not much after that. So it's not quite as bad as what like
The Giants.
the Giants are going through, because there's a couple of guys that are in there, and they have some high end guys that know what they're doing, but there's no real depth right there. Vita Vea had an 80.9 rating right there. He's one of the best in the league as a run stuffer. So I have no problem putting him on the list, but it's the depth thing that concerned me with this team.
Right. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers come in at number 10, and that brings us to number 9 in the same division, and that is the New Orleans Saints. And we talked about this team, Russ, how they don't have a big superstar guy. They don't have a big giant contract along the defensive line on the interior. But these guys all grade out well, and they always have such a good D-line in New Orleans.
Yeah.
What do you got on them?
Well, I'm looking for my notes on New Orleans. I know that they have they have a bunch of guys that are like pretty good. They don't have any guys that are like, over the top. But they're deep enough that they can survive injuries, and you're not going to be embarrassed with that team. You're always going to have a quality guy, even if you go 2-3 deep. Mm-hmm. I didn't have my notes right.
They have one of the best linebackers in the league, and Demario Davis right behind them too. So really, they're clogging up space.
There we go.
They finished near the bottom of the pack in interior sacks from the interior, but Demario Davis feasts because these guys are great at manipulating the gap, clogging it up, taking space. Hey, Paul Jones, welcome to the show. Alicia Martins is in the house too. Says, what does the ESPN DA say about him?
I don't know.
Is that the ESPN district attorney? I don't know.
Ooh, yeah, that sounds like some Law and Order stuff. But
you just happen to have a drop for Law and Order, didn't you?
Hey, you know how I am, dude. I'm trying to make it through all those episodes right there. But New Orleans have a guy named Malcolm Roach, who graded out in the 70s. Kalen Sanders, Nathan Shepard, all these guys are decent at rushing the passer, but they're not real good against the run. So that's why these guys are a little bit lower. It's just the run deep, but they can get after you though. You know how New Orleans is. They can upset some teams, but there they are right there. Another one of those guys.
They come in at number 9 on our list of top defensive tackle rooms in the NFC. And that brings us to number 8, the most hated team in the land. Also the most loved team in the land. Not from anyone on this program, and that is the Dallas Cowboys. They come in at number 8 on defensive tackle room. Mozzie Smith from Michigan had a little bumpy start, but all the talent is there. And this team, it was a top 5 defense in every phase last year. Mike McCarthy took over running the plays on offense, and we'll see. They have a new defensive coordinator. Dan Quinn has moved on. We will see what this year brings in Dallas, but they come in at number 8 this week.
Yeah, they're decent. They're a decent defensive tackle team, but the strength of their defense definitely comes from the outside and in that secondary and everything. But they got a couple of guys. I got 5 guys, really that you could do something with, but they're more pass rushers. Again, they were exposed by good running teams that were able just to run right at these particular guys in Dallas. So there you go. There's my 2 cents on Dallas Cowboys. You always laugh at me. I always think you're laughing at me, but
I'm reading the comments because Roy's in the house says, "Go Cowboys."
Are we hating on them because they're too low? You got Osa Odigizua. They got Golston.
That's why
Smith. Those guys are okay. But the guys that are ahead of these guys, you'll see why Dallas isn't up here. You'll see.
They make the list at number 8, and number 7 is Cheese Nation.
Oh, shoot.
The Green Bay Packers. Talk about Cheese Nation for a minute, coming in at number 7. What are they looking like on the defensive tackle tip?
I think that they are actually looking. Oh, shoot. You put me in here by myself. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I think they're actually looking pretty good. When it comes to, they have guys. They got Carl Brooks is good. TJ Slayton's pretty good. Devontae Wyatt is developing, but he's a pretty decent pass rusher. Kenny Clark, I don't know. 100%, where he's going to be at this age in this stage in his career, but they got a bunch of guys that are good, not great. I think it's a better version of what we were just talking about a couple of people ago with the New Orleans Saints, where you got a bunch of really good guys that can come in there, but none of them are gonna change.
You and I differ here. When I made my list, I had Green Bay much higher. I think this is one of the strengths of their team is their defensive line. You were talking about Kenny Clark. Kenny Clark is a beast still. Okay.
Right.
And Devontae Wyatt's a young player that's developing and looking promising. And then they got a guy named Carl Brooks, who you and I scouted for the Lions during the draft. We thought this guy'd be a good pickup for the Lions, right? And he had a very solid rookie season last year. They're very encouraged with him out of Bowling Green University. Guys like a fire plug on the defensive line. And that gives them depth. That gives 3 solid guys that could start on anyone's team for me. So they come in today at number 7 on defensive tackle. I think they're probably going to finish the season better than that.
Okay. And I'll tell you that I can agree with you. And then when we get to those teams, I'll these other teams might have gotten up on this list a little bit because of name recognition, but I don't think that it's this next team at all. I do think that this next team has a better defensive line than the Green Bay Packers, and that's the Seattle Seahawks. And these guys are like, not only are they crazy depth, they bring over Leonard Williams. Jerron Reed is just a staple in the middle. He played like 809 snaps last year. Leonard Williams, and these guys get after it. And then they draft a stud, Byron Murphy. So they've even got depth in that spot. So I lost the main event Mike. But that's why I have these guys there, is because they have some high end. They have 2 really high end guys as far as 2 guys that you can put out there at the same time. Leonard Williams and Jerron Reed. That's pretty devastating. So, and there they are. I think that we lost main event Mike. Can you guys still hear me? Hello. All right. Can you guys still hear me? Can we get a yes? Yes in the comments. Yes or no in the comments if you can still hear me right here, because we lost main event Mike. And I know that Paul Jones missed Pete. Davey's happy about Pete. Right there, we can't post to something. Yes, okay. Daniel Sims can still. So at least I can still go on through here. But yeah, we have the Seattle Seahawks at I don't even know what number we are at right there. But this next one in here that I want to throw on here, and this is the one where I think that we might even be able to put a couple of these guys in here. But my next on the list is the San Francisco 49ers. And I think that I apologize to the Green Bay Packers, but I actually think that these last 2 teams that we were just talking about are actually better than this team right here. And I'll bring in main event Mike in on this one. And what I wanted to say right here, because I was just talking about the Seahawks, and I feel bad because I really feel like I messed this up. And I'm going to correct myself right here to the Green Bay Packer fans and the Seattle Seahawks fans. But I put the San Francisco 49ers too high. I honestly think that I overhyped them just because they're the San Francisco 49ers and how good that defense is. They had Armstead. They had one of the best defensive tackle rooms. But, you bring in, Malik Collins, Jordan Elliott. Are you sure? Are you sure that's as good? Are you sure that's as good?
Well, they do have Javon Hargrave too, one of the best. So that
they have Hargrave.
So that tips the scale. And those guys, those other names that you mentioned, the way John Lynch drafts and develops. I mean, they lost Kinlaw, but that's a player they drafted and developed.
But this is one. I'm just giving them the kudo right there. The Green Bay. If you wanna argue that they should be up higher, I believe that you could make this argument with me, and I'm not gonna die on a hill and say San Francisco's got a better room than you do.
Than Green Bay? I'm sorry I got kicked off of the internet there.
I think that Green Bay can make an argument that they have a better defensive tackle room than the San Francisco 49ers. I think they can make that argument.
Well, too bad, because one came in at 7 and one came in at 5, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, it is. It is what it is. But I'm throwing that out there for you, okay?
Okay, all right. That's for the Packer fans.
Right there.
All right. So what happened to those damn Seahawks at number 6?
Okay, so you didn't hear any of the things that
I was kicked out for that. I missed it.
Okay, so you got Jerron Reed, and then they brought over Dexter, not Dexter Lawrence, but the other guy,
Leonard Williams.
Leonard Williams. So those two just by themselves are, pretty badass. Just having that's a good starting two. That might be one of the better starting two, right there with the with our team. Right there, but Leonard Williams and Jerron Reed, those guys are staples. And then they go and they draft the stud Byron Murphy with the 16th overall pick. So I think that team has some scary to it. The Seattle Seahawks, especially in the middle, not only with what they have for now, but you draft Byron Murphy on top of that, and then you have a couple of other guys that were pretty good too, but they played in smaller spurts, so they got good depth as well.
Yeah. On my notes here for Seattle, it has deep. I wrote deep because these guys are deep. You look at the PFF scores on even those backup guys that played 200-300 snaps last year. Those guys graded out huge on those good 200 or 300 snaps, kind of a lot like some of our Detroit Lions players. Some of those players that didn't get as many snaps, but when they were in there, they graded out good. So that's what we mean as part of our grade is the projection. And when I look at the Seattle Seahawks, I think that this time next year, we'll be talking about them ahead of the Green Bay Packers and the San Francisco 49ers because John Schneider and the Seahawks organization also do a great job of drafting and developing.
Yeah, and they are ahead of the Green Bay Packers, and it's for that reason. I don't think I would put Green Bay ahead of Seattle even now. Even now, right? And that's because what you said. They're deep. They're deep. They're a little deeper at that position.
But I think Kenny Clark had a down year last year, and if he rebounds to what he was in 2021, he's going to be something to deal with on the line for Green Bay. Yep. So anyway, so the Seattle came in at number 6 on our list of top 11. Why is it 11 and not 10, folks? It's on the villain squad here.
Right
because
down there.
Ours go to 11. That's why, because ours go to 11. Put it in the comments. Tell us what you think about defensive tackle room ratings in the NFC.
It takes more.
Let's skip right over. Let's glaze right over them damn 49ers at number 5. We already talked about it. Javon Hargrave. They lost Kinlaw, and they have a couple of guys they've drafted and developed. And that brings us to number 4. And they have a couple of guys you might never have heard of. But if you look at PFF grades and you watch tape of last year, games from last year, after losing Aaron Donald, these guys brought it together. You've got Bobby Brown. They say I'm crazy. And they've got Kobe Turner. And they drafted from Boston College, Braden Fisk or Fiske. Yep. Braden Fisk. And this was one of the highest rated defensive tackles in the league. So they didn't only double down, they tripled down on the loss of Aaron Donald drafting last year. And these guys were late round picks. They didn't have any first round picks. Detroit Lions had those. And they hit with some of these guys here. Kobe Turner had a great season. And so did Bobby Brown after he finally left Whitney.
They say I'm crazy.
Rest in peace, Whitney.
Kobe turned. This was one of those teams where it was like when I went into, looking at the research of the Rams, I was thinking, see what you do without Aaron Donald, and I came away disappointed because it's like, man, they got some other dudes in there too, and they haven't had a first round pick in a while, and it's that's a scary team. They draft well. They do draft well over there, and that's why they're up so damn high. These damn Rams, they just won't go away even without Aaron Donald. I still like this defensive line. Yeah,
Bobby Brown had a real good season last year, and Kobe Turner. Could you imagine being named? Could you imagine being named Kobe, and you get drafted into LA? I mean, there's a mural on every corner of a guy with your name on it.
Right. 72.1 for Bobby Brown on total defense. Kobe Turner was an 83.2 overall with an 81.2 pass rush. Just he seems to be a real well-rounded defensive tackle, and that's rarer than you guys would actually think. It's like you usually just got a big fat run stuffer, or you got a guy that can get after the quarterback that's not good against the run,
Daniel Sims is in the house. What's up, Daniel? Welcome back to the program. Great to see you in here. Mike Fisher in the house. Good to see you. Davey and also Roy says Seattle's always stacked on defense. They are. Look they drafted Tariq Woolen. And then after that, they drafted Devin Witherspoon. These guys are studs, man. That's why me and Russ always say those damn Seahawks. They drafted Devin Witherspoon right in front of us. Took him right out from under, and it always seems that way. They come into Detroit, they kick our ass. 3 years in a row now they beat us. And we get them again this year on Monday Night Football.
The damn Seahawks.
The damn Seahawks. Yeah. But now Pete Carroll isn't there. So Dan Campbell will never know what it's like to beat Pete Carroll. Kind of like Aiden Hutchinson and CJ Stroud. All right. That brings us to number 3.
It's my quarterback.
On our list of top 11 defensive tackle rooms in the NFC, and it is your Detroit Lions. Come in at number 3 on our list, and this one was an easy no-brainer. Could have easily gone even higher. Ali McNeil and DJ Reader, 2 guys in the front, and then it's the depth that propelled the Lions into the top 3. It is the guys coming up behind them that show a lot of promise, even though Levi Onwuzurike has yet to show he can get out there and stay healthy and play with this back injury and these things he's been going through. He played what, Russ? 200 snaps last year.
He played less. He played less than 200 snaps, but he graded out better than I thought he did. I thought, from what I hear from people, it was like straight bust. I'm looking for a 40 or a 50 grade in here, where like he looked like he just didn't know what was going on. 68.5 PFF grading as far as the limited snaps that he took. It looks to me like he's healed from this back injury, and he might be able to provide depth, not second round draft pick type of depth, but it might be a way you can kind of like save that draft pick a little bit, even if it comes in and plays a role, Yeah,
but we don't know. It could be this guy's never really been what he was supposed to be coming out of college, and if he does hit that could be huge. And then the development of Broderick Martin, DJ Reader already said he's committed to try to help this young man get better. And with those long arms and freak athletic ability that Broderick Martin has, and he was drafted by Brad Holmes, so there's something there.
And then we got Mekhi
and then drafting Mekhi Wingo's right. What I was going to say next, who had a much higher draft grade than where we took him in the 6th round, and out of OTAs, a lot of rave reviews so far about Mekhi Wingo. So that's a lot of dudes right there that I just mentioned, and there's even a couple that we're missing. We're loaded along the D line.
We got some.
Josh Pascal could play inside.
He plays inside out. And actually, to tell you the truth, when I was looking through the stats, John Kaminsky's actually listed as an interior defensive lineman on PFF. So John Kaminsky is, and man, looking at that team, and we'll talk about that next week when I start my program, the Lions Villain Report. We're going to go through the training camp preview because, it's right around the corner. Monday, we're going to be a week away, so we're going to start going through a couple positions every day right there, and that's going to be an interesting battle right there, that defensive tackle position.
When does that morning show start, Russ?
That starts next Monday. That's a week from at 9 a.m.
And you'll be going 5 days a week?
Maybe 6 days a week. I'm going to go on Saturday as well. Yes.
So there you go. Russell Wayne back on with his regular program. That's what tells you, folks, that we're getting close to the start of the season. Training camp is less than a month away, just a couple of weeks away, actually, for some teams. And this is going to be 9 a.m. right here on the Villain Squad Network at Lions Villain Squad on Facebook, or you can go over to our YouTube. It's at Villain Squad. It's the Lions Villain Report with the maestro, Russell Wayne, also broadcasting live on Roku TV and the Huddle Sports Network. Moving on.
Stick, I'm back.
9 a.m. Russell Wayne talking without big eye boogers. That's what I'll have at 9 a.m. Moving on, top 2. And this one's going to surprise some folks, okay? It surprised me. And I was at first pushing back on it, said, you are crazy. We cannot rank them this high. But then he showed me the numbers. And then I started looking at how young these guys are and what kind of year they might have this year.
So let me set this up right here because this team right here, every week in doing my research and going in deep diving on, all these little metrics, there's always one team that surprises me that was a lot better than I thought that they were going to be. And that is this week's team, the Atlanta Falcons. That is the number 2 team with, I can't say the name,
David Onyemata.
David Onyemata, and an 83.3 overall, 77 run grade right there. Grady Jarrett, LaCole Johnson. And then they drafted not 1, but 2 of the top 5 defensive tackles in this year's draft, and Dorius and Ruko. Yeah, you got to do a Scooby impression.
Anytime you can do a Scooby impression to say your defensive tackle's name.
What's his name? Rook?
Roro. Roro Raggy.
But what a deep this is the best overall when you're talking about. They have a ton of defensive tackles. They have 2 300-pound dudes on that defensive line that they actually list as defensive ends. Like, they got dudes on the deepest room in the NFL by a mile when it comes with big men with this Atlanta Falcons team. What do you got to say about the Falcons?
And well, they have a new defensive-minded coach in Raheem Morris, who is used to putting together all-star defensive lines in Tampa Bay. Okay, he's used to that. He knows what he's doing. He's a defensive coach. And you bring in Kirk Cousins and look at all the weapons that he has on offense as well. The only question for this team is the secondary and the offensive line. But defensive line, they are really tough. Ororo was a very highly rated defensive tackle coming out of Clemson, I believe. Is it Clemson or NC State or Clemson? I believe.
Yep, Clemson.
Which is a big-time program. And David Onyemata, a guy that's not a household name, but in NFL circles, they know he is a top 5 defensive tackle in this league. So Atlanta Falcons come in at number 2 on our list of top 11 NFC defensive tackles. And now that brings us to number 1. And they are quickly becoming the most hated team in the land. And that is the Philadelphia Eagles. And they have a defensive line that won't quit. They got some dudes. They basically got the University of Georgia national champion defensive line.
Right.
There they have Jalen Carter, who put on an incredibly impressive rookie season. And they've got Jordan Davis and a guy you may never heard of named Milt Williams, who grades higher than both of those guys.
Isn't that funny?
He is he is an unsung hero. He's got that. These guys are actually hands down probably the best defensive line in the league, with Atlanta and Detroit rounding out the top 3. And you can make an argument either way if you want, but Howie Roseman has really put it together here. As one guy retired, they lost Fletcher Cox, right, Russ?
Yep.
But he just keeps reloading.
Yeah, the thing is with this team now, you're really asking guys to step forward. The Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, those guys are going to step out, and then you got these 3 guys. Now, I honestly thought about putting Atlanta as the number 1 team over here, but I actually believe that these 3 high-end guys might be the best 3 high-end guys on any team. It's just like 1, 2, 3. They're really interchangeable right there. I don't think that the Atlanta quite has that, even though I think they have better depth than the Philadelphia Eagles do. I think the Philadelphia Eagles, if those 3 guys stay, they're not going to have to worry about it. You're going to be throwing in just spells, 10% dudes that don't have to play all the time. But those 3 guys will be able to handle it.
Right. And Howie Roseman, he is the top of the tops, right there up there with Brad Holmes, Brett Veach as a general manager. And, he drafted Jalen Carter, number 10, and Jalen Carter might go on to have like a Hall of Fame career. He might be the next Warren Sapp, right? And everybody was scared about the off-field issues. And so far, after 1 year, he's got him playing, and the guy's a dog. And Jordan Davis also going into his 3rd year. Oh, that's such a good call out, Roy. Roy says, they have Nolan Smith. He's actually a pass rushing linebacker. That's right. Nolan Smith from the University of Georgia. And they also have Kobe Dean, who plays linebacker from that championship team as well.
That's 2 weeks from now.
Nolan Smith did play in the last few games of the year last year. I think he played in the final 3 games last year, including the playoffs.
We got pass rushers coming in 2 weeks? Next week is safeties. And then we're going to do pass rushers the week after that. Right. Then you'll definitely be hearing about Nolan Smith on that one. That's a good call out right there.
Right. And there it is. That's our top 11 defensive tackle rooms in the NFC. And as Russ said, next week we're going to do safeties. So do your homework. We want to hear from you. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Villain Squad. Follow us on Facebook, Lions Villain Squad. Don't forget we have a group also. It's called Lions Main Event, where you can put your opinion in. You can make a post. You can put a meme up there. You can put a picture up there. Anything you want that's football related.
Yeah.
Disclaimer.
It's all right. Anybody in there in the comments, man? We got done a little bit early today, Mike. That's all right.
That's all right. We are under no time constraint. Yeah, Roy agrees that Philly's D-line is crazy. But I'm excited to do safeties.
So let's review.
I think the Lions are going to really place well in the safety.
I didn't go through and have a big overall list, but going back through top 11 right there, coming in at number 11, we had the New York Giants. Coming in at number 10, we had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And number 9 would be the New Orleans Saints. Number 8, the Dallas Cowboys. Boo. Green Bay Packers coming in at number 7. Seahawks number 6. Yeah. 49ers. And then we got the Rams at 4. Your Detroit Lions at 3. 2 is the Atlanta Falcons with the surprise guys up high. And then the Philadelphia Eagles, God, you got some studs up there. I know a lot of Lions fans were clamoring for us to take Jalen Carter with that pick. And who knows the way it would be, but I am definitely happy with Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta instead of Jalen Carter. I don't care what anybody says. I would take that 100 times out of 100 times.
Right on. So there it is. Defensive tackles next week. It's safeties. We appreciate all of you right here in mid-July hanging with us, watching the show, putting your comments in. We're back here every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Hell or high water. It's the Main Event Football Show. From all of us here at the Villain Squad Network, for Russell Wayne and myself, I am Main Event Mike, saying God bless each and every one of you, and peace out.
Play my games like